Welcome to the Smoking Word.
Yeah, what up, everybody? The Smoking Word is back, and I had to come back with Upstate Newburgh in the building. Hold on, let me get my whole thing. OG Upstate, something in the water. I want to talk about that Upstate water that you guys contaminated and started a whole movement. But a very old friend, crazy, because I knew, but not till you guys started popping up again. I realized how many shows we done, and I really sat back. I was like, damn, it's been a long time. But everybody, I want to welcome to the podcast. I've been trying. I'm gonna show you later my list of guests that I had from years ago, and you were on, and for a minute. So finally, I got to get you, everybody. Mikey, all I wore. We got Newburgh's finest in the building. Listen,
thanks for having me on.
No, on the real. It's funny because, like I said, we talked about it a while ago, and I was literally going through one of my notes of like guests early on. I was like trying to get a whole list of people, and I had you on. I was like, I know, man, finally we got it. First of all, welcome back, kind of. Not just, well, good to see you, but welcome back to, you guys are fucking killing it now.
We're playing as much as we can in our old age. Playing as much as we can.
Yeah. I mean, so... How did, like, okay, we're gonna go through the whole old shit. I know a lot of the history, but we'll touch base on some old stuff that I want to talk about. But the resurgence, that this era right now, the new, I don't know when this version of the band started up again right now. Were you guys jamming out, or was it one thing that came in and you kind of said, "Yo, let's do a show," and then it kind of set the spark off? Because I was curious, because I know you do your thing and you're kind of in the mountains, and everybody's kind of scattered, but then I would always hear, and then I started seeing you pop up everywhere, and I was like, okay, I wonder what lit the spark.
2013. So we hadn't been doing anything for about 3 years at that point, and then 2013, Joe Hardcore got in touch with me, and he said, "You know what? I want to have you on This Is Hardcore. Can you get the For Those Who Were Crucified lineup back together?" And we haven't played together in years. So, I just threw it out there to the rest of the guys, and they were into it. And originally the idea was just to play the one show. But then when we got back together with that lineup, it was like, the floodgates were open and all like, the creativity was back, and then we said, you know what, let's put out an EP, and then we got offered another show, and then we got offered another one, and the next thing you know, we're playing in Europe, and then 4 albums later or whatever it's been, here we are.
Yeah, you had a bunch of EPs, and then I know because again, I know we had talked about it a long time ago, and I also know a lot of people might know and not know. I know you were teaching, and I know that also takes up a lot of time for a touring band. You know how that goes. It leaves the summers open if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, and then starting, what was the first show back that the This Is Hardcore then? Joe, right?
Hardcore 2000.
Yeah, leave it to Joe. He, it's great when you have a guy who really loves the music and gets to a point like being able to do these shows and make these things happen. You know what I mean? Like maybe you guys would have never been in a room together or have a reason to talk again and be like, yo, let's do this shit again,
Before that phone call, I had no intentions of doing anything again. Not that I don't love this stuff, but I had 2 young kids at home. I had been teaching for a while at that point, and I started to just settle into that lifestyle of sitting home. And but now I love doing it, man. It's back.
Yeah. Now let me ask this, because this is, I use you guys as an example throughout the years and a lot of things with, especially now, hardcore, especially East Coast hardcore, always had a crossover element to it. We all know it from the, the cause for alarms or whatever, but it was very selective. For me, I don't know these old school guys. I never claim to be old school, but when my era, whatever you people want to call it, you guys were those guys, and I remember being like, oh, no, that's not just like, oh, they're putting some palm muting. Like, no, this is some other shit. Like, this is more. Like, this is, and you getting into the music as a kid, where I got into music through my brother, who, rest in peace, you know, he was a metalhead, hardcore guy. So I got into both, but obviously metal was the first thing.
That I totally came from a metal background, especially living upstate, you know, especially where because we're kind of in that no man's land. The Hudson is in this weird no man's land between Albany and the city, you know, so finding hardcore, you know, was a total accident because I just loved heavy music, period. And then I started, like, I was just on the Drew Stone podcast, and I told him, like, I used to remember the old days when you had the antennas on top of your house, so I spliced the antenna cable coming into the house, and I plugged it back. I tied it into the stereo so I could get all sorts of different radio stations, and I got NYU.
Wow, Crucial Chaos, all that shit. Wow.
Agnostic Front and Cro-Mags and all that stuff, but I had no idea that stuff wasn't metal. To me, it was all metal.
Yeah.
It was, you know, I was a little kid. It wasn't like I was going to a lot of shows, so I was just like experimenting with all this different types of music. And I've always been like, I just love aggressive, heavy music.
Yeah, and I always use, you know, again, like now with the Mind Force, a shout out to them, and just a lot of the whole upstate New York movement's always, you know, a la heavy guitars, a la the DNA of All Out War, one way or another, even if they don't sound like, you know, that was adopted. And I always said, I know why. Obviously, you know, metal was always more accessible, and obviously the further out from the city, you're limited with what's coming in right away. You know what I mean? Like, as far as what's, you know, but something about that area, the Newburgh, the, you know, the middle towns, the, you know, even from Albany's and all that, it always had, you know, again, like maybe how you said it, the way they got their punk or hardcore was from a different thing. So it was always more, again, you know, the you know, I remember all the Detroit guys, you know, all those, it was always skin. Some of these dudes like Riley looking like a skin, and, you know, they're playing some real heavy shit, you know, and it was like, I get it. He's listening to Oi, and then he's listening also, they're listening to like Morbid Angel.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And when you're putting together a band, especially up here, you know, there is that heavy, you know, that metal influence, especially on the guys that actually played, you know.
Yeah.
Guys,
that's what I mean. Yeah, for sure.
Coming from a metal background, and they were sort of, you know, morphing into hardcore, and a lot of people up here were getting into hardcore through Leeway and through Carnivore and through stuff like that. So I think that can explain a little bit of the metal sound, because a lot of the guys were coming in from a crossover background and then discovering hardcore that way.
Yeah, for sure. That's what always the stuff with me was too. I always leaned towards the crossover stuff. I didn't appreciate the old school, more punks. I was never really into punk rock, but the old style of hardcore I appreciated later. I was always more into what, you know, that the crossover, you know, the Cro-Mag, that Age of Quarrel, and then everything from Raw Deal up, more whatever hardcore became later, you know, the hybrid of everything kind of shit.
That's the stuff that I love, like, you know, like the Raw Deals, the Crackdowns, the Sick of It All.
Yeah, you know, and again, all those guys, people seem to forget. Every single one of them was a metalhead. Not everybody was born in CBGBs. I hate to break it to the world. If you look at, obviously, look at the Crumbsuckers. They weren't trying to not be, but they always held their metal roots out. But beyond that, it's considered, you know, look at those guys before, you know, Sick of It All guys. They were all, it was Denim and Leather. You know, that was extreme. You know, they were into Venom, Discharge, and then as hardcore started going to more shows, you know, they evolved.
Well, if you think about it too, that Exodus Bonded by Blood, that record, you hear a lot of that record in a lot of hardcore stuff. I'm sure, like, a lot of people won't admit it, but you could hear it. You know, that album, I think, meant a lot more than people give it credit for. In the
hands down, and the difference is, you see, that's, you could tell we're from the same era where now it's people won't. We come from an era where, you know, people would deny it. If you were very hardcore, you would deny any metal roots. I remember that era. God forbid.
Yeah.
Now you see it's opposite. Now it's so extreme. Now everything is open in a cool way, you know.
Right.
Things change, but I like that it's accepted, like, versatility and shit. Now let me ask you this. So you're picking up that you're into heavy music, you're picking up hardcore stuff. How did the band whole thing come in? Like you were like, fuck it, I want to be in a band, or how did that whole thing fall into place?
There was a band called AWOL from Newburgh, and they play. So they play like the Pyramid. They played ABC No Rio. They play the Anthrax.
Real quick. I bought their 7-inch at Bleecker Bob's, just looking, and I wish I still had it. I remember, and they were like, "Wow, upstate." I remember the AWOL, and not till you said it, or I just heard it somewhere else, that those guys, you started the band with them, which bugged me out. So I
sang their last show. They were looking for a singer. They asked me to do it. I did it. I never, thought I would do it. And then right after that, that's when we met Chris. And that's when we met Chris. So Karate Chris came into the fold, and we met him in the strangest way. Like, so I remember when all you guys used to come up, but even before that, so upstate New York, what do people do in upstate New York? They have outside keg parties, and the cops come and bust them. So a bunch of my friends were driving to this keg party, and we see this dude running because the cop showed up, and whenever the cops show up, everybody would run. So we're like 17 years old.
Yeah.
And there's this guy, he's got a DMS jacket, and we didn't even like put it together at the time because it was so out of context, out of place.
Yeah.
We ended up picking up Chris randomly to help him out, and then we started talking, and then all of a sudden he started talking about hardcore, and then he tell us he's in this band called Marauder, and then he gave me that live CB's tape that was floating around.
Yeah.
And from right at that moment, I was hooked. They were the perfect band.
Yeah.
And then, we needed a guitar player. Chris was around. So we started jamming with Chris. And two of the songs from our first demo were actually, supposed to be Marauder songs, and they ended up being All Out War songs.
Yeah.
And then joined the Navy, and but he injected that DNA, so we had that going on, like that was the core of the band.
What a perfect thing. You guys were already into that sound, and he pops up there, with the look. If everybody out there, we're talking about Karate Chris. He's actually an old friend of mine because I saw him in the picture with you and you connected me. I've been talking with him. We're connected again, but an old friend of mine, one of the original guitarists for, it was him and Saab and Marauder. And long story short, I remember, again, we were real tight. And when he moved upstate, we would go visit him. And then I remember hearing, I'm starting a band up here. And I was like, first of all, nobody had better stage presence than Karate Chris. I say that right now. And him going off at it, I remember being like, this guy's insane. Like, I never seen nothing like that. And I was lucky to see the Cro-Mags and AF and all that. Insane, just, everything about that nut job. And then with the music, it made sense. They were half skins playing, crossover, real double bass metal shit, and we were like, finally. Quietly, a lot of us were like, finally.
In 2007, we played someplace called The Hook in Brooklyn, and it was short-lived. But Chris was there, and he got up on stage and he played those demo songs with us, and it was
get out of here, crazy. And then so you, that's funny that you hook up, and now the sound itself, obviously. You were into a metallic sound, and Chris was already into it because Chris was a creator guy. All Marauder was creator dudes. Yeah. I remember all they would talk about was creator.
And that's why that early Marauder stuff was perfect, because it had that German thrash aggression with New York hardcore groove, and it was the perfect mix. It was the perfect blend. And those old songs don't get enough, like Extreme Fallacy, Shot Dead, all those songs.
Right.
Like I wish those songs got like a proper production and proper release, because those songs were phenomenal.
I gotta say, the fact is, when they came out and they were like really on, everybody had to step their game up sonically. Like stayed, they were the first guys out of us, like the guys in the trenches to, okay, we're gonna have a band, but we're coming out with full stacks. We don't give a fuck. We want a drum set that's bigger than the stage. They win for it, but they were always, they loved the it wasn't like they were not into the music, but it was like, I remember being like, wow, this really sticks out. And I remember being like, fuck, we need 2 guitars. Like, I remember being like, 2 guitars is like.
Well, and another thing, like that time, so 1990, and you obviously know this, 1990, it was like hardcore was starting to die a little bit, because
a lot of it, yes.
We're starting to move on to like the post-hardcore stuff. And not taking anything away from those bands, but for people like me, I wasn't that, I wasn't done yet. I wasn't ready to move on to mellower stuff. Yep. So my solution was, and people, All Out War guys, was, we're going to get heavier. We're not going that route. We're going to get more extreme, and we're going to bring in, and then we also started bringing in like the Creator stuff, and Creator, Destruction, Sodom. That was a big influence on us. And then Nuclear Assault. We were really musically influenced by a lot of like pure hardcore bands, like Cro-Mags. We were Carnivore, stuff like that. Leeway, but not.
We all got the energy and the attitude from those bands. But yeah, sonically, same thing with myself. I was trying to play what Slayer was doing. You know what I mean? I was like, I love, this Chroma, I love this AF stuff and all that. But I remember being like, man, when you palm muting and you're doing a halftime on drums, I'm like, I want to do that shit. Like, and that's what I loved about those certain metal bands that did get it. That's why I loved when when the hardcore version of metal, I think, was the perfect combination, like bands like you and a bunch of other bands, because they knew the breakdown, they knew the setup, they knew, obviously, let's do some technical shit, but we're gonna break it down caveman style. There's got to be a beat in somewhere. That comes from the hardcore shit. Back in the day, metal was about how fast you could play.
Right.
And hardcore started, even for the most primitive tom thing. Okay, now there's a tempo change. Then you start hearing a little bit more grooving in certain parts, and the Celtic Frost influence, open guitars, not everything palm muted. You know what I mean? And then it's a great thing. And what you guys had though, but you guys had like, when I give it to you guys, it was like, it was a metal style, but nobody was doing that type of metal that I could remember. Because again, the more metal stuff was either Marauder, and before that I would consider super metal would be, let's say, the Crumbsuckers.
Right. And we were definitely pulling from more extreme stuff. And then the whole death metal thing was starting to explode right then, too. So we were pulling from that at the time. Like Obituary, we were pulling from. We were pulling from Morbid Angel, Deicide. And then we were incorporating that into, like, the Cro-Mags and Leeway and stuff like that. And that's really, really where the sound came from.
Yeah, and something you said before was right. I wanted to touch base with when the scene in the 90s, it was dying. That's what we try to tell people. Like, even with our first records in the early, the scene was dead. Like, I remember being like, not for nothing, that's when we were playing a lot of shows together. I remember having a bunch of shows together, and, it was during that time in the 90s. People don't understand. Like, now it looks more glorious some of those times than it was.
Yeah,
it was. What I mean,
it was hard to find shows. Yeah, and, it always cracks me up too. Like with like the metalcore stuff, people are always looking to see like or trying to say, oh, this band started metalcore and this band, but the reality was, everybody was popping up independently of one another, and it was just like a coincidence. I wouldn't say there was any band that was like the creator of all of this.
I agree.
It was just everybody was kind of doing their own thing, and then it was a bunch of misfits that just kind of didn't fit in anywhere else, and we all found each other eventually.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. Like, it came in waves. Before English metal and all that, the influences in hardcore was the punk and the rock part because it wasn't invented yet. Then when the British metal came, then you got Discharge. Now you got punk and Discharge. Now you could lean towards Sid Vicious or you could go towards Discharge. We all started leaning towards the Discharge, GBH, and then it went to that. You know what I mean? And again, we got to thank the English metal for that. That I think their version of metal really they showed the influence, the punk rock, hardcore influences in there. Like we talk about Creator. Let me tell you, Creator. Shout out to Mila and the boys. Those guys love hardcore. They old school hardcore guys. They've been going to hardcore shows forever. Our first shows in Europe, we used to basically play at one of their rehearsal places. They love, they grew up like, yo, this is the hard shit. We love the Cro-Mags, we love Venom, we love this band. I was like, kind of like Upstate. You know what I mean? Upstate was like America's Germany in a way. Like, you know what I mean? Let me ask you this though: because I know, like, it's hard to know the influence you do sometimes that your band has had on people. I know the same thing too. I kind of bug out sometimes when people are like, wow, you influence me, even people in other bands. I know for a fact your band influenced a lot of people because they always talk about it. Like, people in some other bands, known bands and stuff. Has anybody in any bands that you kind of bugged out that approached you that were like, yo, All Out War, yo, you guys were an influence on me and you were kind of surprised?
No, nobody specifically, but it is always cool, especially with the younger bands when they come up to you and big of an influence. I mean, because we don't really think of ourselves that way, I mean, we're just enjoying the ride. Just having a great time playing. I mean, we do it for the love of the music, and we don't get caught up in a lot of bravado or any of that kind of stuff. But it is always an honor, for bands to come up and say, hey, you guys really, influenced us. So, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, because first of all, Upstate is bumping our bands. I always say All Out War. I go, you guys poison the water there, because I would tell, Mind Force, all of those guys, Jay, I go, yo, what's in the water up there? They do a cool where they keep the metal, but they added more swag, that New York leeway swag. But you hear the metal, you hear the Upstate metal, which I love because I'm a thrash guy. And that was the thing that Upstate, even when you guys did more death metal or whatever, I hear the thrash, DNA in it. That's why it's the version I like of what's the metal that's around. You know what I mean?
And Mind Force, they blew up and they really put the spotlight on the Hudson Valley. They're like the first band to really push the whole Hudson Valley hardcore scene, which is great. Sure. It's a shame because up here there's a lot of bands, but there's no more venues. There's nowhere to play. There's a bowling alley that's trying to do stuff in Middletown, which is cool, but it's just not like what it was when we used to have a
couple of skate park or whatever. Yeah.
But I mean, the scene in the Hudson Valley was always pretty good going back to the 80s because, we had in Middletown, especially, there was always something going on. Like there was warehouse shows, and then there was a place called the Rock Palace, which fit 40 people, but Sick of It All played there. Sepultura Creator played there.
Wow.
There when they were much too big to play there. But we always had a scene. It's just it didn't get much attention.
Yeah, and I love it now. Like a lot of bands come out of that area, and they all bump you guys, and definitely I think it's dope for you guys that it brings you guys back on the spotlight, and especially now that you guys are you're playing, you got material out, because there's it's a weird day and age out there in the music. We are like the politics of it. I'm not the older, younger, and not who's wrong and who's right. But to be an older band that's not just, we all still respect it, but, to also be respected. Like, I'll tell you right now, there's a couple bands that the new generation are really, repping for. You guys are one of them. Outburst is one of them. There's certain, those two the most than that, besides the Gorilla Biscuits and Marauder is starting to get a lot more recognition from the younger bands as being their influences. You know what I mean? I'm noticing it a lot. And again, the sound is more. It's that even the New York hardcore sound is more towards the All Out War sound. Now you got still the city swag, but everybody's getting more metallic. You know, it's kind of like gave everybody the go ahead, like, yo, we could do that now, kind of shit.
And like I said, sonically, we're definitely a metal band.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know and you listened and you put on All Out War, you'd think it was a metal band.
Yeah.
Which is great for me.
Yeah. That was a great where. I know it wasn't a thought of thing, but now it works perfectly because the lay of the land fits perfect. You guys could play a Milwaukee Metal Fest and you could play a fucking show with AF and Gorilla Biscuits. It's
and that's what we've been doing that. Our whole existence. We play death metal shows and then we play hardcore shows.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy. Yeah, in Middletown, my old band Demise, we actually, there's a show we played and it's forgotten about. I almost forgot about it. And we played with fucking, they're a big metal band. And I remember I was with Fat Kevin and it was us at all cost. And, Candle Box, one of the Candle Mass. In Middletown, I want to say, dude, and Demise played it. And I remember being with Fat Kevin. It was like the longest day. And I remember like falling asleep, like there might have been a balcony maybe, but pretty crazy. But I remember I was like, wow, we're playing a metal show.
That might have been in Rockland at this place called World Stage.
Yes, at Rockland.
That place popped up, World Stage, and they had a lot of great shows, but it was really short-lived, and that was a bigger venue. But
that was at the Rock. I remember it now. Yeah, and I remember that's like a forgotten Demise show that I literally remembered maybe like 2 years ago, and like right now it popped in again because I was like,
Demise is doing stuff again. Our guitar player actually mixed some of that stuff.
Yeah,
put it when they re-recorded the stuff.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, they all told me, right now I'm busy. They asked me to play, but I was like, nah, I can't. But I'm rooting for them. I'm glad they would. Beto always played. Cheeky, I know, just always loved to, be in the hangout. All of them, I'm glad they're playing because they're having fun doing it. You know what I mean? That's my main shit. Is like, I like to hear new music, but like, don't do it just because you see these reunions. And you think you're gonna come out and play it for a fucking million people. Like that's also fantasies. Like, no, it's music, and play shows, make music up. If you do it,
Right, you got to do it just because you love the music. You love the music, you love the camaraderie, like seeing friends again. And I mean, like with me, this is what I do. And my whole life, my wife I met doing this stuff. It's like everybody that's in my life is from this stuff, and you try to branch out once in a while and like hang out with people that are from outside of this, and it's just
doesn't work yet.
Same, I can't do it.
Yeah, not for sure. And now, when you guys rehearse, are you rehearsing? What's like the system? Like, are you guys rehearse weekly or once in a while, or just when you try to get together for some shows? What's the dynamic of how you guys work?
Every other week, except if a show's coming up. If a show's coming up, we try to pick it up a little bit more, but every other week. And the funny thing is we always laugh because, we used to practice like really late at night. Now we practice really early in the morning.
We all that.
We used to go to rehearsal with beers. Now we show up with coffee.
Yeah, I know all about it. I'm up at 3 a.m. At 9 o'clock, if I'm awake, it's a miracle and shit.
Yeah.
No, but that's good that you guys are getting in a room and practicing and stuff, because that's something that I think that alone, like not only helps the music evolve, that whole just the vibe with the whole band. If you are trying to create more music, like just getting back to playing with each other in a room, and then you know how that is. Everybody starts feeding off each other because you all want to be there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I don't want to not write music. Like, I don't want to just play, the old records or, that stuff. I want to like create new stuff. Plus, I'm still like looking for new music. Like I'm always looking for new stuff, different influences. Like, and I like, like finding even the young bands, like I love discovering bands, still
What's something crazy that you listen to that you think a young All Out War fan would bug out? You'd be like, "My,
Boy,
you listen to that?"
I
We all
listen
got a guilty pleasure. We all got a bunch. I got tons.
to Bob Dylan's Desire record. That's I love that record.
You are definitely a Newburgh, Middletown, upstate. That he said, Bob Dylan.
I like that. I like Leonard Cohen, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, stuff like that. I like.
You know what? I don't know much of the Nick Cave, but people seem to love that whole Nick Cave stuff. Like, what exactly is that?
It's just like, I heard Martin Ain say this in an interview once about that type of music. Like, it's just all different shades of darkness. And that's what I like about it.
Yeah. And that's cool. And
I like The Cure a lot, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's kind of more like anything extreme goes into something like that. As we all have something like The Cure or something in the background, like a total opposite of like destruction or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and right now, you writing music? You guys are writing? Like, what's the plan? Like, I know you said you were talking about the influences, how now it's also changed. So I'm assuming you've been writing more, or what's the plan with that?
We're writing again, so we put out for a while until COVID, we were putting out a record every 2 years.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of EPs and stuff too, right? Yeah,
a good groove. And then COVID hit, but when COVID hit, for as shitty as that was, we kind of went down the rabbit hole of different types of extreme music and started to incorporate that into the sound, so that's why the latest record that we put out, Celestial Rot, that came out last year, is much more extreme than anything we did before because, COVID, we were writing everything online and trying to get together when we could, but we were just, what else? For me, school was shut down, so I had nowhere to go. So I was just kind of like putting music. And then I also got involved with a band called N-Rain, and we just put out a record on Relapse over the summer. And that came.
And that shit is dope too. So yeah, I remember. Well, I remember you were doing that. I was like, I didn't even know you were part of that when we were covering it on the show and all that. Because I know
my record was a lot of fun to work on, especially since that was all coming together during COVID.
Yeah,
and, like I said, school was closed, so I was just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah. And now, how long you've been teaching?
I've been teaching since 2002. So I've been teaching for a long time.
Jeez, go figure. Because I remember, I know the rough story because I know you were working at the school and then you had the opportunity to start teaching and you liked it and you was doing that. But, wow, that's a long ass time, huh?
Yeah, I'm the department chair, believe it or not.
Oh, man, there you go. And I think I caught some of you on Drew's show. And that was what I was gonna ask. Was like, if you had run into any students at your school that had that maybe caught one of your shows or something. And I mentioned you said you saw some shirts in your school or something, right?
Yeah. Like because we just played with Hatebreed in Poughkeepsie in October, and there was a lot of kids at that show. And sometimes you're like awkward with that, you don't really know what to say, but
yeah, for sure.
It's whatever, but.
No, I was going to ask you, and do you think, I ask a lot of bands this, and you'd be a good, because you guys, I mean, not that you were not playing, but you would play, you kind of do your pockets of stuff or whatever. I think, and do you feel, that on this time around, that you guys are probably getting props that you should have got? Not that you think that, but people think that, these guys are getting shine that they should have got. Because I think I see you guys out there, and besides you playing, like, the talk around you guys from other bands, new bands, old bands, and the accolades and stuff. That's why I notice it more than ever for you guys. You're one of the few bands out of older bands.
I think in the 90s we really didn't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
There was very few bands that were doing what we were doing, and we fit in the best with Ralphie shows.
Yeah.
Because Ralphie did Devastating Sound Network.
Yep.
And we would play a lot of shows with Starkweather, Crisis, Disassociate.
Crazy, extreme.
And that was like, it only existed for a short moment in time, but it was like really eclectic people that just wanted to hear brutal music, and I think we fit into that scene. But then when we signed to Victory, we didn't fit in with that at all,
Yeah.
because like I think we went on that label, and a lot of these kids expected us to be like a straight edge band, and we were far from a straight edge band. And then they expected us to like fit into that, but we were like, dirty metalheads.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were like really metal. Like we weren't trying to be like,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
we were trying to go through the motions. We were unapologetically metal, and I think like us and Ringworm really got lost in that whole thing because we were something different than those kids were expecting from bands on Victory. Plus, at that time, Victory started to move away from the heavier stuff as well. Now us and Ringworm were kind of just there.
Yeah.
And I think, when we came back in 2013, I think, people appreciated what we were doing a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Because you just said something that I never thought of, and I just saw the sense in it that a band like you guys, obviously metal band, but obviously it was more than just what the metal that was going on, because you got that hardcore heart behind it. So there was that extremeness to it that it would resonate with that crust scene. I see it. I totally see it, but I wouldn't, and people to the outside world wouldn't, because they consider that maybe punk rock. You think pogo punk rock. It's like, nah, this is like extreme, like almost a pre-blast beat, like on its way to blast beat, noise, heavy. Because I knew about those old bands, but I started paying attention more later, on the extremeness of them. Because again, I wasn't into the punk shit, and to me, I would lump them into that, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not, like.
But those shows that Ralphie was putting on, they had something for everybody.
Yeah.
So there was some like more traditional punk stuff, but then there was a lot of grind bands, and then there was us, and then like Starkweather was a band that was just off to themselves. They were totally like original, and there was Crisis.
Yep.
So I think that that was a really cool scene, but again, another short-lived scene.
Yeah, because it was crazy, because I remember, again, I always loved the metal stuff, and we would follow it. Like when the whole grind shit got big, there was no place for that in the East Coast. Like we were good friends with originally there was a band called Winter, and that was Scott Lewis. He was the drummer, Winter.
Yeah.
And Winter was New York's, that was slow, like unheard of, heavy, like Crowbar, now.
Winter was so far ahead of their time.
Right? People don't know. And first of all, the name is the hardest name, Winter, right? How perfect. And their style, I remember then, nobody being that. And I remember being like, they're from New York or wherever. I was like, damn, this shit is like, wow. And then, and then it was Brutal Truth later on. So early Brutal Truth shows like Scott Lewis, those guys, we were all at their shows. Not metalheads. It was some metalheads, because it was still niche.
Right.
And we knew all the Road Racer. We knew those guys. Ezek was good friends with Scott Lewis. He loved all the hardcore stuff. And we go represent for the grind bands. He'd come out with the single, come out with like a grinder and like sparks flying. He was doing wild shit, but we were like, word, this shit's hard and crazy.
It was great. It was all that stuff was totally, underground and totally real, because those dudes did not care about anything else but the music.
Yes. And the same thing, I wish we could find it. If you would find Carcass, the Clockwork, when that record dropped, they played CBs. First of all, it was just us. There was some people there, but it was mainly us.
Yeah.
We went off. I remember that show because, first of all, we loved the record, and we were all skinned down. And I know it must have been a sight to see Carcass playing in a bunch of skins killing everybody. It probably like a Bizarro, like a Salvador Dali painting, But we loved that shit, There was a place for it. But it's funny how you said it. It gets so extreme. It almost becomes like they lumped into an artsy kind of category at one point,
But to me, those were always my favorite shows, like the mixed bills. Like, I always liked going to shows that had like a lot of different styles going
Yeah.
on, but all heavy stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's and I've said this a million times in a lot of interviews I've done, but I saw Nuclear Assault and Broken Bones at City Gardens,
What a
and that
combo
was
right
like
there.
sort of my introduction to like more of the hardcore stuff, because I went to see Nuclear Assault, but
Yeah,
then UK Subs and Broken Bones played, and I was like,
and that's some OG shit too. Like you got to see some classic, like the DNA of a lot of people with that. So, and what an eclectic freaking bill for them. Think about
yeah.
it,
And I think some of the stuff that's a little bit, and I totally respect all the younger bands and the younger scene, and I don't want to sound like I'm taking a shot. It's just there's differences, and I think when I came up, it was like you were trying to one up your friends by finding bands that they didn't hear of, and you wanted to be like, hey, I got this
Put you on.
this band called the Icemen. I remember like seeing the Icemen at CBGB's and coming back upstate with the Iceman shirt and Iceman tape and all this stuff. And Maximum Penalty was another one.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be into something that no one else was.
Absolutely.
And now I think it's a shame for a lot of it. It makes it a lot harder for bands, because now kids sort of gravitate towards who everybody likes.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody likes the band, and they don't give like more of the unknown bands a shot. As much as we did back then.
I agree, definitely, because I remember the same thing. Yeah, it's how they get the music. It's almost like not their fault. Is it get the music in a different way?
No, what I mean? Well, it's a different time,
And I agree, like how we got, like, for us, that was totally me. I wanted to be the guy to be like, yo, I'm gonna put you on. I was the king of the mixtapes. You could ask Ezek or anybody. I would make the tapes for everybody, because I would always be like, I came from hip hop, so I used to be like, I used to make hardcore mixtapes. So I wouldn't play a whole record. I would play, We Gotta Know, then Power, and then, Sick People, and then, Street Justice. I would mix it and blend them like hip hop. But I always used to be like, yo, you heard the new song from so-and who's that? Yo, new band coming out of. I used to love being that guy, like, put you on to something new. I got excitement out of that, Yeah, and it's definitely not as much now, because everybody kind of, it's hard to be, you could be unseen, but you're still out there. You're just not seen because everybody's seen now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
now.
Yeah, it's weird playing field, but it's good and bad.
Yeah.
It's just different.
It's different. Right. It's different.
Now, let me ask you this. Your last recording, times have changed. We've got to see recording from the old days, recording on reels, and to the era in the middle where, there was Pro Tools, but then half the people were like, no, it takes away. And then now we're full-blown technical eras, modern era. All right, how you guys go about recording? How did you record your latest record, the last record you did?
The latest record, our guitar player, Terrace, just recorded. Because he's got a place in Brooklyn. I'm pretty sure that I don't know if Demise practices there, but it's.
So. I think a spot that nothing.
Johnny Cray's spot. So Terrace got a bunch of recording equipment in there. So we just tracked everything there, and then we sent it to this guy at Errol in California, and he mixed it. But Terrace did all the tracking.
Yeah, that's dope.
But don't get me wrong, like, we love going to like Steve Evans. We record a bunch of records with him, and he's incredible, amazing engineer and producer. But for this, because of COVID, we just started recording it ourselves, and then just said, you know what, this has a nice dirty sound to it, and that's what we were going for with this record. We wanted a dirty sound. We wanted it to sound ugly, and Terrace knew what he was doing. Terrace is getting really good at recording. So,
and now again, you know how it is. There's kids right now doing demos that sound like albums. It's like the technology is ridiculous. Look, I got bullshit demos. I could barely turn my laptop on. I got demos that sounds sometimes. I'm even like, wow, they sound good. Just because, the compression in these things, and they kind of like, you could get some good, and you guys are veteran players. If you know what you're doing, you know how it is. You got to get a good signal, good basic tones. The rest is performance. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, they had one microphone and they some great record, but those guys could play. You know what I mean? Yeah, they could play.
And you really had to know how to play, or else you were exposed in the studio.
Yeah, exactly. You were exposed.
You couldn't go back and do it again, especially especially if you were the drummer.
Oh, exactly. And then you heard about all these later on, these drummers that couldn't hang and this and that, and then the stories, they had to get this player and that player, and then you learn about session players and all that shit's pretty crazy how it happens. And what's the deal with you guys now? So obviously you're still teaching, so that still means summers are off, right? Unless you're doing summer school.
Yes, I don't do that.
But, so does that mean you got some touring, or what? Or what's the deal?
Well, the other guys we all have kids. And everybody, those guys work. We do as much as we can. Like, 2 years ago, we went out and we did a bunch of dates with Ringworm. And, we do like long weekends, with whoever. We kind of stick to that. And we do a lot of like fly-ins because, like, really, we don't, we get accomplished just as much by doing like long weekends. And then if we need to go to the West Coast, we need to go to Europe, or we've been going to. So we went to Japan in 2018, and then we went to Japan again in just this fall.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That's what I was saying. Yeah, no, totally. Like the way you say the same thing, with me, with my new band, like we're going to be hitting the road, but like, yeah, we don't need to be sleeping, on floors, freaking, 290 days, out of the year and all that shit. I agree. And you know how it is. Like, yeah, play with, get in there where it counts, try to get in good weekends. You could do a lot of damage and also keep a career, keep a family,
right?
Keep sanity.
And we do this, strictly for the love of doing it. Yeah. Which makes it, because I remember, back in the day, touring all the time, and I don't particularly love touring. Like how I always like look at touring is I love the first couple of weeks and I love the last couple of weeks. And I always would dread that middle.
Yeah.
Middle when the van or in Europe, the bus, whatever, would start to stink really bad.
Totally.
I'm just like, oh man.
Your brain knows already when it's the last week or so and you start tapping out already. You're like, oh man, sometimes. And then you get either down and then happy that you're getting home, the countdown begins and shit.
But I'm really lucky in a sense that my wife comes from the scene, so she kind of understands it. She understands like the need to do it, like why I need to do it for my sanity.
Yeah, so for her too, she probably like get him out of here once in a while so she could take a breather from you. You know what I mean? Like,
and I did. Michelle and I, because she was in Starkweather, so Michelle and I had a band together.
Shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we did a band called Below the Frost with Matt from Hatebreed. Michelle wrote all the songs, and then maybe do you remember a metal band called Primeval?
Yeah.
So Mike, the guitar player for Primeval, he plays guitar in that band. It's called Below the Frost, and it's like
I want to check. What's it like?
It's like doomy, but I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Oh, but on that tip, and I didn't know your lady played with Starkweather, huh?
Yeah.
Always original.
Yeah, she's the original.
Because I want to say Demise was on. We were on a compilation together.
Yeah. East Coast.
Because I remember also Starkweather. Even then, because I knew they were more metallic. They were also seemed to be the band a little bit ahead of everybody at the time, like or getting more accolades. I remember because I remember the name. I remember even being like, "Oh, no, those are like some more metal." Like I already had put them in my head, like, "Oh, they're more the next level up kind of."
Really heavy parts, then would break into like just some mellow stuff, and they were doing like that screaming, singing thing like long before, but in a whole different way than what it turned into, like more of a ominous kind of demonic, scary type of way. Like I always thought of Starkweather as like what would be going through the mind of a serial killer. Like that was Starkweather to me. They were just like,
well, you better be very nice to your lady then before the Starkweather comes out when you're sleeping.
Right. I remember the first time before I met her, it was they played CBGBs with Sheer Terror, and Chris was there, and this is before I even heard of them, and Chris comes out. Marauder was playing too, but this was after Chris wasn't in a band anymore. And I said, "Who's playing now?" And Chris was like, some band called Bad Weather.
Yo, that's
It was like, oh, Chris.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad I was able to connect with him. He's a very good and a good friend of mine. I have a lot of memories of Newburgh, Middletown, going up there with him, and especially those were crazy times. And him with you. When I see you guys, I always just think Chris. I'm probably mentioned every time. Then when I saw the picture, I was like, "That's fucking Chris."
Yeah, Chris pops up out of nowhere. Like I go for years, I don't see him, and then all of a sudden he pops up again.
Yeah, he told me. I told him. I said, "I saw you in the picture." He goes, "Yeah, I'm alright." Pop up, and then I go. When you told me he pops up, I said, "All right, Mike knows where he's at least, so he's around." Like he's not like. And then he texted me the other day, man. No, but like again, I got a lot of rest in peace to my brother Double O, but I remember a lot of him because some of his last days we all spent together, us three, up there, and we were going up there all the time.
I remember when Double O would come up.
Yeah, we were up there all the time and stuff, and he had family in Beacon and stuff, and we would go to Middletown. Then Chris, we were up there on a regular, forget it. But and so what's the next move for you guys? So what's next for you? I know you got your family, you're taking care of your family, you're working. What's the next move? Just
keep doing this, man. We're writing a new record, trying to keep, like, my philosophy is get heavier with each record, bring in more influences, don't get stagnant, because like I said, I love the creative process with all of this, especially like when I was a kid, I didn't really like the studio all that much, but now, I love the whole creating, I love it. I love getting in there and kind of,
for sure,
boundaries.
Yeah, that's cool. And when could everybody expect this record? Do you have a specific date, or you just starting to put shit together?
We're just writing it, so we're probably like 4 or 5 songs in, and we've been doing some covers. Like we just did a Nausea cover the other day. We did Fallout, because I always wanted to do that song. So we did that just messing around. I don't know what we're gonna do with it.
Cool shit. Nah, man, that's good. And what's up with merch? Where could you guys got merch up? Anything?
Yeah, we got mostly through Cold Cuts merch, but we got the Big Cartel thing also. Just All Out War, Big Cartel store, and then you can get the newest record from Translation Loss. They had a guy named Drew that we're friends with. He put out the last record, so you can get it through him at Translation Loss. I think it's just translationloss.com, but that's the Celestial Rot record that we did. And we just we got This Is Hardcore coming up. We got a show in Albany May 11th. We haven't been up there in a while.
How far is Albany from you guys?
Albany is probably an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Oh, I thought it was a little far.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Like I said, we're right in the middle. We're right
in the middle. Yeah,
in Albany. But once I started to go to shows, the greatest thing about it was we had Albany, then we had the city, but then we had the Anthrax in Connecticut.
Yeah,
all the same distance. So
and what about the Chance?
Well, the Chance when I first broke into this didn't do a lot of this stuff. Like they did a lot, like some metal shows, but even those were like few and far between. And the Chance wasn't really like heavy music friendly. They had heavy shows, but the bouncers, it wasn't like going to a show in New York where you could stage dive and
it was like a rock club. They were trying to be a proper rock club, right?
Yeah. They were trying to always try to squash everything. But Middletown was always cool because they always had the underground clubs. There was this one place called the Grunge Club that you used to have to climb a fire escape to get in. And actually, the picture of Paul from Sheer Terror on Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah.
That picture was taken at the Grunge Club in Middletown.
Get out of here! That's crazy. I didn't know. Wow, I didn't even know that. That's crazy. That's funny. Class is, Sheer Terror, white trash, upstate New York. What more? That's like a.
We love.
Exactly. That's New York hardcore. Everybody, that's a piece of New York hardcore, no matter what anybody says. That's just a fact.
I remember like
Yeah.
when I first heard Sheer Terror, they had the same impact on me as Marauder
Yeah.
because as a guy transitioning or
Yeah.
kid transitioning from metal into hardcore, like that Blake sound,
Yeah.
and you carried that sound into Dark Side, that ominous Celtic Frost guitar sound that Blake had was amazing.
I loved it. That was the thing also, which when you saw Paul, obviously he was more towards the skin look, but they were playing a metallic sound. Again, I was a hardcore skin, but I loved metal. So when I would get amped when I would see, Leeway later, the Chromags with two stacks, the Sheer Terror sonically, because I'd be like, I like it when we could push the metal shit and not get freaking shot down for it. You know what I mean? Because, it'd be like, I remember having a discussion on one of our records the first time we had to do a double bass on a Madball record. We had a discussion because we were like, it sounds right, but we don't want people to think we're Hatebreed, But it was a discussion over one double bass beat. Because at the time it was, a band like a hardcore band wasn't doing double bass beats, God forbid, And we did the same shit when everybody was hey-hoing, getting melodic. That's when we put out Look My Way. We got darker. We were getting more metallic then. And everybody shitted on us. When we did the Look My Way record, everybody shit on us. They were like, what's up with that metal record? Because everybody was getting mohawks.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
funny that you say that because one of the best drummers that I ever played with was Lou Medina. So,
great.
So Lou, he played in Breakdown, Cold Front. He's playing Fahrenheit now, but he played with us, and he had never played double bass before.
Oh yeah, so it's a different ball game sometimes.
Well, he picked it up really quick, but it just goes into what you're saying because he was all hardcore bands and
now it's like exactly. Now you got to go.
Dirty phrase, So when he started playing with us, he had to learn double bass.
Hell yeah, no, for sure. That's crazy, but it's good. Listen, I'm glad you were able to jump on here. I've been wanting to get this for a minute. I'm glad. Especially for the band, I get happy when I see you. I was trying to get the picture. I'm going to send it to you, but there's an old picture we have of you guys and us in some backstage. I was trying to find it. And I got to, somebody had shot a picture. It's maybe Stigmata, you guys and us backstage at one of these shows. Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah. I was trying to dig it up for this, and I couldn't fucking find it.
Bogies? Was that the place?
Yeah.
It was like... Yeah. That was a great show. Great day.
And I remember the picture. Yeah, that picture was great.
95? I don't even remember. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was around that time because we did, between 95, because it was during when we were doing Cold as Life was coming up here a lot around that time, exactly that. We were doing the Down by Laws, the first album, the 94, 95, exactly. And then that's when we were, like we said, the scene was dying and we were playing a lot of shows together. Up there, even I'll just remember before we had Wartime Manor, all the Troy dudes, all those guys. That was the same thing. All the metal crossover, that sound was always lingering up there,
We used to go up there a lot, and I actually met my wife at the South Troy Community Center.
There you go. Shout out to Mike Valenti. Speaking of Troy,
what's that?
I said shout out to Mike Valenti for fucking speaking of Troy because he's the mayor, the patron saint of Troy, I think so.
Well, it's funny because I met Karate Chris at a keg party, but I also met a lot of those Troy guys at a keg party, down at random outside keg, and they just showed up out of nowhere. And I think it was in Poughkeepsie, and we met those guys, and then they invited us up there to play, and then we started to be good friends with those guys too, and all those shows in South Troy were always crazy.
Oh yeah, I remember the Wartime Manor guys. I remember that you giving me flash for Agar and all them, and I remember Stigma. He used to see them and he used to say, "Welcome to the Wartime Manor." Stigma
always would see me and think Wartime Manor, and he'd always say, "I know it's not Wartime Manor, but I'm just gonna."
Yeah. He knows. That's good. That's good. He got the demographic. That's good for Stiggy. Listen, Mike, on the real, I'm glad you able to come. Hopefully we could play some shows with my new band. We're gonna be playing around, so we're gonna be doing some stuff, and definitely keep me posted on what you guys are doing. And again, I'm glad, man. A lot of people, I hear you guys get talked about a lot, and I'm glad because now is the time everybody's trying to do the all-out war shit. So enjoy the fruits of your labor, and the rest of you guys. So the rest of you guys too. That's all right. Yeah, we got Mikey. Like I was saying, on the real, good luck on everything. I'm glad you guys are doing your thing. I'm glad you're getting those props. Keep me posted, whatever you guys are doing, whenever you got some new music and stuff. But you know the deal, man. Tell all the fellas what's up and all that shit. And I hope to catch you guys. I'm gonna be up there soon. So
and good luck with the new band.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. You never know. I might be calling you for some guest vocals in the near future. You don't know.
Whatever you need, man. Whatever you need.
Everybody, listen, make sure you go represent All Out War, Newburgh, Hudson County, Hudson Valley, the whole shit, upstate New York. Listen, go represent. Mike, one love, my brother. Tell all the fellas I said what's up. This is going to probably drop tomorrow. Everybody, we out of here. Peace. We out.
Thanks for having me on.